everyone, welcome back to the Book Cave with me, Jenny. So today I am reading, or rather listening to the trilogy The Keepers. And this is a middle grade trilogy written by Leanne Tanner. And it just sounded interesting, and my library had all three available, and they're all between 6 and 7 hours. So I figured it'd be a quick little series to get into, a middle grade fantasy, which I haven't read a whole lot of middle grade fantasies, but I like fantasy in general. So I figured I'd give this trilogy a try and let you all know what I think. So I've listened to about 2 hours of Museum of Thieves, and so far I am liking it. I like Goldie as a character. I feel like she is somebody that a lot of especially younger people can relate to, that, the wanting to be free and feeling like, there's so much to explore. And yeah, so I really like her character. And then it's rather interesting to see, like the guard chains and stuff, and to think about how nowadays some parents, well, it's not really even nowadays, it's been a thing for a while, that parents have the little soft wrist loops for their kids to keep them from wandering away. And, I'm wondering if that's kind of like what the author was trying to parallel, or if that's just something that, because it's something we've seen, that it matches up for me. But yeah, and the museum is definitely interesting as well. It seems like it's got quite a bit of magic in it. And yeah, so I'm definitely excited to get further into this and find out more about the museum and everybody who stays there, as well as the protector and the vice chancellor, I believe, is the other one. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, and you can definitely tell with the villains that this is a middle grade, because they are kind of the over the top cartoony villains that don't necessarily have a whole lot of nuance. But I'm still finding them fun, because, sometimes you just like that cartoony villain, and then going into it knowing that it's a middle grade as well, it definitely doesn't surprise me, because I do feel like middle grades tend to keep it pretty black and white on the villainy. There's not a whole lot of moral grayness there, which is perfectly fine. I finished listening to Museum of Thieves, and I have to say I really did enjoy this book. It was very fast paced. I felt like, the adventure started and it was throughout, and even the little bits that maybe weren't so much of the adventure, I felt like they advanced the plot a lot. They added a lot to the world building, and that's another thing. This had some really good world building, and I really did enjoy that. And I feel like the ending was definitely, open, and you feel like you want more, but I also feel like it's not something that, if you don't want to continue right away. I don't feel like it's left open-ended enough to where you immediately need the next book. So that is kind of nice to be able to kind of, maybe read something of a different genre or anything like that. Or if you do have to wait for your library to get the next book in, you don't have to like worry about that either, and being, just absolutely enthralled with it. Um, yeah, so I did really, really, really enjoy this, and I loved all the characters. Like I said, I loved the world, and yeah, this was just a really fun middle grade fantasy, and I will definitely be continuing it with the next two books, also on audio, and thankfully I have both of them. My library had all three of them, so we'll see if I can knock those out, all three of them, in a week. Maybe. I will find out. So I listened to about 30% of book 2 in the Keepers Trilogy, and that is City of Lies. And this particular book takes place in the city of Spoke, which is a little bit further down south on the peninsula that the city of Jewel is on. And so this picks up about 10 months after the events in book 1 in the city of Jewel. And it starts out with an invitation for Goldie to be a keeper of the museum. And that's kind of what kicks the whole adventure off. And like the first book, this one kind of dives right into the adventure, and very quickly the action starts, and we have Bonnie being kidnapped, and Bonnie is Toadspit's younger sister, and so that is what kind of brings everything to a head, and brings Goldie and Toadspit and Bonnie to the city of Spoke, and they are there during the Festival of Lies. And so basically for 3 days everybody tells nothing but lies. So I feel like once that actually starts happening, that will be very interesting, because right now we're at the day before the festival, and I'm sure that the other 60% of the book will take us through that night and into the day when the festival starts. So yeah, this is definitely a very interesting and fast-paced series. It still does have some of that middle grade-ish where the villains are definitely villains. But again, knowing it's middle grade, I don't mind it, and I feel like this is still really engaging and well written. I'm just over halfway through City of Lies, and as with the first book, I'm really enjoying this, really enjoying the characters. I really love Goldie's bravery, and I love the animal characters as well. This one we get kind of a multi-POV, because we have Goldie, Toadspit, and Bonnie, and then we have mostly Sinew, but then we also have some Olga Chivoga back in Jewel, and kind of learning through that, as well as having the Protector. So this is definitely very fun and very fast-paced, and I am enjoying the plot, and I have a feeling that where blah, blah, blah. I apologize. I have a feeling that where we're at, there's about to be a very big twist. So I'm interested to see what that is, and am very excited to finish the second book and get on to the third. So I finished City of Lies now, and that was definitely interesting. I felt at first like it was going to be, although a good book, it was going to be mostly filler, and in a way it kind of is, but the ending brings everything together very nicely, and I feel like it wraps it up and gears up for the third book in a very tidy way, and I enjoy seeing the new characters. I am interested to see how Mouse plays into the next book, as well as Bonnie, and as well as the history we have found with Goldie. And I would love to see some more of that history in the next book as well. And I'm definitely excited to get back into the museum, because I find the museum absolutely fascinating. And then the City of Spoke was very fascinating as well, with the magic that was there. And that's another thing that both these books so far have done very well, is the magic part of it. It feels like it's just enough that it brings that little extra bit, and it's simple enough that you can just kind of go with it and everything makes sense, even if it's not necessarily super explained. But as I've said multiple times, with it being a middle grade series, that's kind of to be expected. So yeah, I will be starting the third book tonight, and I will report back once I get a little way into it, probably honestly tomorrow morning. So I'm now 60% through the Path of Beasts, and I do like how this one definitely ties in with books 1 and 2 much quicker than book 2 tied in with book 1. And again, the writing is very fast paced, and I feel like it's really well written as an adventure story. And I love the museum and its magic. Like, it just seems very unique to me. And I do have to say that other than, like, with the first 2 books, as I said, the villains are villains, the good guys are good guys. Like, there's not really much shades of gray in it. Other than that, it really doesn't feel overly middle grade to me. Other than that, and then the fact that it's mentioned Goldie is only 12, and it's mentioned quite often, that they're called, her and Toadspit are called children, because they are. But I feel like all the adults in the stories give them a lot of autonomy, and so the fact that they're young doesn't really play into the story quite as much as it could, other than the fact that they're young, so they're underestimated by the bad guys. But yeah, I'm definitely enjoying this series as a whole, and I'm definitely interested to see how they overcome what has happened now and what else Brew has up his sleeve. He is one of my favorite characters in this book. I didn't mention his quote in the first book, but it really did make me laugh, where Olga Travolga tells him he can't kill somebody, or he can't kill the Blessed Guardians who are there trying to nail down the rooms in the museum. And he says, but you said I couldn't kill them, but can't I just chew on them a little bit and spit them out? And that just, really made me laugh. And yeah, since then he's been one of my favorite characters. And I love, how protective he is of everybody. And yeah, so I will probably be finishing this over my ride to work tonight and my way home tomorrow. So yeah, I will report back when I'm finished and close this out with my final thoughts. I finished listening to Path of Beasts, and I was a little disappointed by it. The Path, honestly, was just kind of a recap of the first 2 books, So that part was very disappointing. However, after that, I felt like, other than that, I felt like the action was pretty good and pretty high stakes. And it's definitely kind of like an open-ended ending. But I kind of feel like a lot of books do that in a case like this, that it's, okay, everything's happened, now it's time to like clean up. And that's kind of where we're at. Although I do feel like there could be more books, because there are a few things that could be gone more into, I really, really feel like. But yeah, this was a fun little middle grade series with a good bit of fantasy in it. And I do feel like it is one that's not really something that a non middle grader wouldn't necessarily enjoy. Like I said, the only real middle grade thing I feel like is the characters' ages, and other than that, there's not a whole lot that makes it stand out as, this is middle grade, and like, yeah, I really don't know how to describe it other than that. But that is everything I have for you today. Thank you for joining me. And as always, if you'd like this video, hit the like button and hit subscribe to be notified every time I post new content. And I will have my Discord linked down below. And I will see you next time in the book cave.